I remember reading an article in 2017 by Carl Frey and Michael Osborne called The Future of Employment, with its main conclusion being that 47% of the jobs in the United States were at risk of automation. The article was actually published in 2013, and the research surrounding the risk of automation has grown significantly since then. Now, more than a decade later, I couldn't help but wonder if their predictions have actually materialized. I know it's a bit cliche, but I did the research, and here's what the literature has to say about automation today, at least from what I have gathered. This video is divided into two parts. The first one is a brief literature review about AI and its effects on employment. Since AI is developing so fast, this part of the video might be outdated in 2 weeks, so apologies. In the second part, I go over what you can do individually and where policy should be aimed in preparation for the future job market. I will refrain from speculation and approach the second half using real-life examples. Okay, so what does the data show? Instead of just going through every article and reciting its main conclusions, if you want that, check out what I wrote in the video description. Let me summarize what I have gathered, borrowing some audio snippets from an NPR Planet Money episode and comparing it to the related literature. To give you some context, the host invites Luis von Ahn, Duolingo CEO, to ask him about workplace automation. He provides examples from Duolingo, so we have some direct insights about what is actually happening in the industry, and those examples essentially mirror what the researchers are saying. The podcast starts with the host asking why translators still exist, since machines can do mostly all of the translating already. Here is what Luis had to say about computers' impact on translators.
And, what I don't think is going to happen is one day, suddenly, translation was complete, and then the next day is perfect, and then all translators get fired. This is a gradual process, which started out years and years ago. And today, a lot of translation is already done by computers. That's already happening.
First thing, the transition has already started, and I believe that this is true for occupations in general. Let me be a bit more specific. It has started in the sense that it is exposing most occupations to AI, and to various degrees. Researchers at OpenAI said in 2023 that, and I quote, around 80% of the US workforce could have at least 10% of their work tasks affected by the introduction of LLMs, while approximately 19% of workers may see at least 50% of their tasks impacted. The Council of Economic Advisors to the US President also mentions that, for the United States, the share of workers in occupation exposed, but not replaced, to AI is approximately 20%. Additionally, Frey and Osborne's methodology for arriving at the 47% figure has been contested. A study by Arns, Gregory, and Sierran from 2016 concluded that the number actually drops to 9% if you consider task level rather than occupation level automation, that later being what Frey and Osborne did in 2013. But consider what also Luis says. This is going to be a gradual process. It is not going to happen overnight since AI is not there yet. Generative AI is still prone to hallucinations. Even Frey and Osborne mentioned this in their 2023 paper, looking back at what happened since 2013. In their first paper, they identified some bottlenecks that would prevent AI from completely automating jobs. In 2023, they mentioned that generative AI is now capable of overcoming some of these bottlenecks, but it still has a long way to go. For example, AI is capable of analyzing speech patterns and facial expressions, but there is still a preference for face-to-face human interaction in less transactional relationships or high-stakes situations. If you don't believe them, listen to what Luis has to say.
But if it's things like the user interface of Duolingo, where we say the button says quit, and we have to translate, that is all done with humans, and we spend a lot of effort on that. But that's because each one of those is highly valuable.
Moreover, there are significant barriers that limit AI's use. For example, the 2025 Future of Jobs report by the World Economic Forum lists some of these barriers, which include lack of skills, lack of vision by managers and leaders, high costs, lack of customization to local business needs, complex regulation, and limited consumer demand. Another paper that examines AI's usage in the United States brings up that US firms consider inapplicability of AI to the business, lack of knowledge, and concerns about privacy and security as the main barriers for AI adoption. This could explain why current use of AI is still pretty low. In the US, for example, the fraction of total firms in that country that use AI is close to 5%, concentrated among the larger firms. Even within these type of firms, 7% report AI use, impacting 9% of US employment. However, firms do expect to increase their use of AI in the near future. Nonetheless, you are better using than avoiding AI. Listen to what Luis says next.
So what you're seeing today, at least for translation in particular, is this combo, this hybrid between humans and computers. I mean, maybe the computer takes the first pass and then a human kind of fixes it up a little bit, et cetera. And over time, it is probably the case that computers will be as good as humans at language translation, maybe even better because they're faster. We're not quite there yet.
In its current state, AI is a tool that helps people increase their productivity. Instead of writing and reviewing, now translators only need to review what the AI has done. This is also what we are likely going to see with software engineers in the future. But keep in mind that for the translator to review, they need to know the language first. Let me start the second half of the video by saying, know your fundamentals, study, and don't prompt ChatGPT with your homework. Learn, use the resources you have in school and online because you are going to need them. Another thing you can do is understand what companies are doing, read their incentives, and react accordingly. You know what Zuckerberg said and where the tech industry is heading. They are looking to automate. Even the creators of DeepSeek allegedly joined the AI game in part to research general artificial intelligence. It is in the best interest of AI developers to give the impression that their AI is capable of replacing workers. And that is the scariest part. You only need people convinced that AI products are good enough, and there is no going back. So you don't need the perfect AI. A good enough product might do the trick and replace you. So maybe think twice before jumping into tech. Don't do it just for the money. The job market has been rough. AI is making everyone more productive. Another justification to hire fewer people by firms. And the big companies that you might want to work for are literally saying that they are ready for the AI engineers. I am using tech as an example because it is the most exposed sector to AI and where most companies report a preference for automating tasks. But this is something you can do for every other sector. Listen to what people are saying, read the WEF report. They have survey responses for a lot of other industries and countries. Read news about what is happening in your particular sector and react accordingly. One important thing to note is that some studies report pro-human bias, and you can use this to your advantage. In a video by YouTuber Roughest Drafts, he discusses a study in which people had to compare AI-generated poems to human-made poems. When the researchers revealed to the study participants who wrote the poems, they favored human authors over AI. We have seen this in chess too, where people still play it even where computers are unbeatable by humans. I think what is fundamental here is the entertainment aspect. People want to see what you can do, not what the AI can do. Continuing with a programming example, look at what has happened on YouTube. Some years ago, it was mainly tutorials. Now, there is a large audience for programming entertainment. Look at creators like Fireship or the Prime Agent. Like them, use entertainment to your advantage. Lastly, I want to talk about policy and point out what it can do about unemployment. Later in the podcast, Luis clarified that Duolingo laid off contractors during 2024, but no full-time employees were affected. This is a clear example of replacement by automation, even if they were contract workers. Sure, AI may start taking the low-hanging fruit jobs, those limited to a few tasks, but these are jobs nonetheless. It means less income for someone. AI is only going to get more sophisticated over time, so we should take this as a clear warning that a transition has already started and that we might not be as prepared as we think. Even Luis had similar concerns in the podcast. Some governments are already working on AI policy, particularly regarding ethics, patenting, investing, and privacy-related issues. The EU AI Act and the US Blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights are some examples. Training and upskilling initiatives have been proposed. For instance, the United States has the National Apprenticeship System, and the previous Trump administration had some training proposals mentioned in the American Artificial Intelligence Initiative. Of course, retraining takes time, and we also have to assume that more jobs will be created, so people can re-enter the workforce after training. An interesting policy that I heard in a podcast could actually use AI to match their skills with jobs outside of their job experience and reduce unemployment spell times. Some other policies I could find are unemployment insurance or the cash transfers and paycheck protection programs we had during the pandemic, a period of high unemployment. Some other people have mentioned tax-related incentives to ramp up investment in applications for worker augmentation rather than automation, or wage subsidies that could make human labor a bit cheaper compared to AI. Also, current regulation might help preserve jobs. Legislation that forces companies to disclose if they are using AI could let consumers choose between, for instance, a human or AI call center operator, and that could preserve that job. Besides the last example, the other policies seem more like temporary solutions. Sure, rich economies have tools like cash transfers and wage subsidies available for longer. But what about the middle and low income economies? We have to start considering what could happen if job creation begins to decline. This could set off cascading effects too. For example, if enough people start defaulting on their debt due to unemployment, it could trigger another economic crisis. We even have to start thinking and asking ourselves if, or more precisely, when AI will make capitalism unsustainable. Moreover, it is time that the economic literature transcends from calculating the probability of jobs exposed to AI. A lot of researchers and economists have done this already, and congratulations to everyone, you all found probabilities greater than zero. Replacement by automation, just like your prediction said, is already happening, and livelihoods are being affected. It is time to start thinking about policies to lift those people up and A, try to get them back into the workforce while we can, or B, give them the means to exist in this new AI world. As a summary, AI is not there yet. It probably won't take your job in the short term, but we might want to start thinking about ways to tackle the issue of unemployment now. Not everyone can take refuge in the entertainment business, nor can everyone become an indispensable employee if they can even gain the experience in the first place. This might be a worst-case scenario, but it is still worth thinking about it. I have mentioned some policies, but I can figure out how to maintain our way of life in a future where work is a privilege for only a few. Thanks for watching the video, be safe, and peace.